So big news today, we put the back windows in the 63.
We're at the movies, huh?
Yep, we're at the movies. Alright, so I got the seal on the driver's side window, and that was actually a lot more difficult than I thought it would be, because I've never put one of these on before. But now that I know it, know how to do it, it's a little easier. But I took this on and off like 3 times until I figured out the right way to do it. So the best way is to start back here where the split is, and then get these corners on. And the whole time you're doing it, you want to make sure your corner is almost a little past the real corner. So you just kind of have to keep stretching it and pulling it, and as you go you have to keep patting it to make sure it's fully seated. Then I worked my way over to this corner and kept pulling it down as I went, and then I just kind of had to keep working it both ways until I got it over here, and then I retucked this area over here. But it's good to have the rubber underneath the glass because of the shape of it. It seems to it's harder to stretch it over if it's like up top. Also because this is a shorter end and the underside is a lot longer, so it's easier to pull it up than it is to pull it down. But I got it, so that's one down. Then I'll get this one cleaned up and do the same to that. So I've got the passenger window all cleaned up. I'm getting ready to put the seal on it, so everything's ready to go. Like I said, this took a little bit of wrestling to get it. Alright, so I mentioned earlier that it's easier to have the rubber laying on the inside. That's because if you look, this cross section is a lot smaller than this one, so it's a lot easier to pull the rubber over this side. And it's also easier to start with this flat edge back here. This is such a big radius that you really can't tell where the rubber is whenever you're working that. So I'm going to start this corner, and then work my way down. You want to lightly pat the rubber on to make sure that it's fully seated, because it needs to be the whole way down, or else you don't even have a chance of getting all 4 corners tucked in. And since this is such a small window, you don't have a whole lot of wiggle room here. As I go, I kind of pull it down once I get it so far. That way, I'm not bunching it up, because you can see already I'm not near this corner at all. So the more that slack you get out, the easier it's going to be, because I'm still overshot. Probably best to start with the sharpest corner, because even that radius was a little too big and I wasn't sure if I was completely in the middle of it or not. I don't think I was. We still have to play with that when we get around to this end. So now we'll go into time lapse. And let's see how this one goes. Alright, so the second window is done. So now all I have to do is wait for the clips to come in for the back, and I just ordered some sealant from Summit Racing. So we can get the clips on there, dry fit the trim, which is in that box over there by the window, make sure it engages, and then once we get the sealant, put some sealant underneath the clips that go on this ridge here, and we should be able to rope these puppies in. So you can see with a little bit of a fight, I'm still learning, but I think starting with like a real sharp corner versus a more radiused corner, you can figure out where your corner needs to sit in the heel there. So just kind of had to fight that around and keep stretching it and pulling it. Once you get so far, you're kind of home free. I was just a little bit of a workout, but I also use this clay bar that we had laying around to clean the top of the glass, because before you'd wipe your hand on it, even just cleaning it, you could hear just a real rough sound, but now it's nice and smooth. So that definitely helped clean off any debris, so it looks good and now look brand new in this. So I'm getting ready to install the rear window clips for the trim, and I didn't take this glass out, the body shop did, so they took all the clips off and they didn't take any measurements or any pictures. But these clips have, well, you can see it, they have barbs that dig into the car, so you can see all the clip marks. Some of them might have been sanded away when I did this project, but I had a picture from a reference that someone else did when they put theirs in. But 13 go on each window, so I'm going to put these on and then we'll tape up the outside and fit the trim and make sure it engages and ready to put the glass in. So all the back clips are installed, and they went on pretty easily. If you can't find like the lines that they made, like the teeth marks, they actually almost drilled 2 holes where they finally rested, because whenever the windshield gasket goes over here, it'll squeeze that clip, and those prongs dig into the glass, so you could see a mark from that. And then comparing one window to the other window, like this one didn't have a mark, but this one did, so I was able to fix them because they're symmetrical. So all 13 clips are on each window. So now, it's not all the way. So now I'll get the trim out, and I guess I'll tape up first. I'll tape up and then figure out that trim and see if we can get the click. So I'm going to put the rope in the back glass now. I'm just using some of this cord that I got from Lowe's. And then once I wrap it around, I'll tape it. I think I want to seam it down here. So I want to start here with my cord and pull the opposite directions and get it even. So I think I want my ends to be here. So I'll start here, go the whole way around, end here, and tape the ends on the glass. And I'll probably leave them a little long so I have some more rope to pull with. Alright, so I got one window in by myself, and it was actually incredibly easy. These are the original windows, so they definitely fit. One of the big things to remember is to make sure the rubber is not on top of the clips, and in a couple places the rubber was hanging over it, so it really wasn't settling down. But before I put the windows in, we put some sealant on the clips, and then after the windows are in, we'll peel the rubber back and squirt sealant in there, in between the glass and the rubber. That way they won't leak. Then all I did was going around pulling the rope back kind of in a backwards direction. That way the rubber lip would peel back. So like whenever you're doing this, all you want to happen is this rubber to end up on top of this lip. So by pulling it out kind of up towards the glass, you're pulling that rubber up, and whenever the rope goes past, it'll lay down naturally on top of this lip. And then whenever you're done, also on a piece of glass that has more of a curve, you'll notice it, you want to, whenever you're messing around with the glass, you always want to have an open hand. You never want to use a fist or your thumb or your finger, because you could potentially break it. But if you use a big surface area like your hand, constant pressure, while you're pulling the rope, following along, it'll come out nice. And then whenever you're done, like I was saying, with a curved piece of glass especially, in this area I noticed it wasn't fully seated. And when you're done, you want to go around and pat the glass, like I said, with an open hand. And whenever I was doing this, I could actually see the glass sliding that way, because it wasn't fully seated. I think it's fully seated now. But once we seal it, then we'll put the trim on later. So that'll be in the future. Now, I had no trouble doing it myself because I had this other hole here. So maybe a little more difficult now because I won't be able to stick my arm through this hole to hold the other window down. So I think I'm gonna seam it up here this time instead of down here, so that way I can hold both sides to make sure it starts right. And then once I get so far along, it'll be a lot easier to control. And worst comes to worst, I get it most of the way and then I get someone else to help me. But we'll try to do it. We'll try to do it ourselves because the first one went so well. So I have the other one there. I'll use the same rope, I think. There's nothing really wrong with it. A little goopy, but it's not bad. I'll just seam it up here and try it again. Just reset the cameras and give it a go. Alright, so now the window's in the car. Put a little bit of tape on there just to be sure it doesn't come back out. So now pull my rope down, and you can see, if you watch this lip, that's where I'm going to start. I'm holding pressure from the outside, and I'm pulling back on this rope, and right there, that's what you want. You see how it's coming over that lip a little bit? We'll pull it over like that. And that's the action you want. And then you can use your little hook tool for areas that don't quite meet. You go back over and pull that lip back, that way it's secure. I'm holding open palm outside, pull the rope back. Make sure it seats. Palm, pull back, and some of these corners can be a little tricky. You just kind of have to swirl it. And you may have to swirl it a little bit by these clips. And once you get past the clip, you're home free. Make sure that rubber is over that lip. Up this side, and now since I'm doing this by myself, it gets a little more interesting at this part. All right, that's as far as I can get that one. swirl around this corner. Swirl around this corner. And since I'm not holding it outside, I'm going to go out and pat that corner. Because I'm not totally convinced that he is rolled down. And then it's in. Now we'll double check by patting outside, making sure our hands are clean, which mine are not, and then pushing that edge over. I don't know if you can see that, but from the outside I could see this edge drop when I started slapping it a little bit, which is what you want. Make sure this gasket's seated. Alright, that's going to do it for this video. If you enjoyed, please leave a thumbs up, subscribe, check out the rest of the videos. If you enjoyed the back window video, I have one on installing the windshield, so check that out. And I have a lot of work to do on this car, so I'm going to catch you guys later.